Good day, this is John Camilleri, and welcome to I Don't Know What I'm Doing, a show about inspiration, creativity, and the creative process. Today's guest is Mr. Joseph Abbatantuono. He's a New York-based percussionist and has been playing for over 20 years, backing artists from Jessica Simpson to Tommy and CJ Ramone. He's spanned across numerous genres from classical to rock, jazz to hip-hop. And besides his performance career, Joe has been a music educator teaching in the New York City area and manages and performs with the Gen X Quartet, which spreads the gospel of jazz improvisation through exciting master classes at high schools and colleges. So we're going to start off this little interview with a little bit of an esoteric question. What is your favorite color, and how does it describe you as a person?
My favorite color, especially into my adult years now, would definitely be black. And I also will say, just to say an addendum to it, I don't appreciate when people say black is not a color, it is a shade. I feel 100% that it is a color. It is the best color. It not only pairs up with any other color in existence, which is the best part right off the bat, because that's what I feel like I'm just trying to aspire to in my life is fit in with all different people that I encounter, as well as artists that I work with, and educators that I work with, and students that I teach. You know, that blending. Also, it's great. It's slick. It's slimming on clothing. You know, that I could go on. Definitely black, though.
I'm gonna give you a little bit of quote and lead into my kind of first question discussing you and your creativity. So, the desire to create is one of the deepest yearnings of the human soul. Now, this was by a guy by the name of Dieter Uchtdorf, and he said this. And so, I'm kind of going with you is, what's your first memories of just wanting or desiring or creating anything as a kid?
My earliest memory of really being excited about the drums, I know for sure, and that was the summer before I went into the fourth grade. So I'm about 10 years old, and my brother, who was actually my number one first and one of my most important music influences, not because he played an instrument at all, because there's no musical lineage in my family at all. It's crazy. But he got a stereo and was playing hard rock and heavy metal and the radio stations and all of that. And that was the first time we were listening to music and checking out bands. And he was playing Van Halen, actually. Funny with your background. He was playing, was it 1984? Right?
With Jump?
And with Jump, and he put on, we're listening to that album, and Hot for Teacher came on, and the drum beat was so insane. And I said to myself as a little boy, and to my brother, I said, one day I'm going to be able to play that beat. Alex Van Halen with this crazy speed double bass. And as my life has gone on, and I've played drums, and I've practiced, and I've evolved, and I've learned, and I've taught and everything, I've learned to do a lot of things. I've learned to play the drums in a lot of ways and play really cool things. And I still can't play the Hot for Teacher beat, man. I could fake it, but I am definitely not making it. So yeah, that was my earliest about I could do this with drums. I could play this. This is really cool to me. Because I wasn't really so much like a builder or a colorer or a painter or anything like that when I was a kid. So this was probably the first thing that really sparked something different in me.
Now, when you picked up, like when you got into playing percussion, you know, we always have people who support us, and those are always kind of like the first people who kind of inspire us and drive us as we're going. And
Yeah.
you mentioned your brother. Like, was there anybody else who, you know, you came home, you got your sticks, you got your practice pad and everything else like that, and you're just playing. Was there anybody during that time frame who, you know, they listened to you or they gave you support, and you just kind of like, yeah, I just want to keep going. You make me want to, like, these people kept wanting to make you keep going with what you were doing.
You know, at first it was my parents because, you know, like my parents were pretty strict. You know, they're old school Bronx Italians, you know, and so there were a lot of rules and it was real strict, you know. But the one thing they never had a problem with me was me playing drums. And then like in the seventh grade, I got a drum set from my friend Ed Marta for like, I don't know, like $100 or something. And it was the greatest thing ever. And I had already been playing classical percussion and all that stuff and loving it, but this was like the super thing. And so like I was playing the drum set like all the time in my house, in my raised ranch on the second floor. There was no basement, there was no underground. And my parents would get hate mail, like anonymous letters from the neighborhood left in the mailbox, like, cursing them out about me playing drums. And again, my parents were real strict, but I remember their attitude. Of course, I don't remember the words, but to paraphrase, it was something to the effect of like, you know what? Fuck them. Keep playing. You're doing something good. I don't care what anybody says. And so that was definitely the first thing. There was that support of like, yeah, if you like this, do it 100% and really enjoy it. And then, after that, I would probably say, a couple of music teachers along the way. Like I was a kid who was really talkative and I was kind of probably irritating as an elementary school, middle school kid, and eventually cool as a high school kid, but still a jerk because teenagers, the personalities, they go. We teach kids, you see how they go, and I see it in myself. But I think that like it's just a good feeling to be able to have learned so much and feel so inspired by teachers that were supportive and nice and encouraged me, even if I was an annoying kid, because they saw my talent. That makes me want to do that now when I'm teaching kids. I'm always glad handing the annoying kids and the troublemakers, because that's where I feel like I am. And if you're into it, I want to keep you inspired. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, parents and teachers.
So going back to talking about your brother kind of inspiring you, when you first started playing percussion, you were listening to hard rock. So who are some of the influences you have as drummers from that genre, from hard rock, metal, and things like that? Because I know I know from talking to you over the years is you have a vast array of people you're interested in, and
Yeah,
you can talk about them all day about it. But
sure.
who are some people that when you first started playing drums, you really put your ear to get inspiration from?
Okay, so yeah, so it was definitely, it was when I was a little kid, the metal that my brother was showing me, Metallica and the hard rock, Guns N' Roses and that ilk. So like I was getting raised on Lars Ulrich, and I was checking out Anthrax, Charlie Benante, who's still an amazing drummer. And that was the first thing that I cared about, just because that's what my brother cared about. And I was a little kid and I wanted to be like my big brother. And so I was checking out what he was checking out. When I hit middle school, we got MTV. And so I started checking out everything. But early on, it was like Metallica, Guns N' Roses. I would also be into like Testament and Megadeth. Some of the bands, I didn't even know who the drummers were. Some of it, I don't think I could ever play anything that they were doing. But it was all of these like aggressive, hard hitting, and kind of interesting drummers. But then once it opened up beyond metal and it became where like melody and chord changes, and maybe you don't have to scream, maybe you could scream in a different way, you know what I mean? Like then things started changing with MTV and then pop music and all of that coming into it. But early on, yeah, it was a lot of like Charlie Benante and Lars Ulrich and Dave Lombardo and Slayer. But I was still little, you know what I mean? Like it didn't really click until like, for me, 100%, I think, with music in the rock and drum set oriented thing, like in the late 80s and into the early 90s. So like Motley Crue, like something that was a little simpler yet kind of really cool in a different way, you know what I mean? And hip hop was always so cool to me at the same time, even though it was so different than metal. because I loved the rhythm of the beats that the guys programmed. So it was drums to me, you know, and the MCs, they all sounded like different instruments, right? So like Ice Cube had a completely different instrumental tone. He was like a tenor saxophone, right? And Easy E, right? He was like a soprano saxophone, kind of like grating and annoying, you know. And Dr. Dre, he was like a baritone saxophone, real body and depth into his sound. So, you know, everything became rhythm and all that. Sorry, I ramble a little bit sometime and go from section to section, but metal wise, as a kid, definitely those guys. Alex Van Halen too, obviously. With man, I just loved all things drums from like when I first started and didn't know everything. As an elementary school kid, I liked taking the lessons and I liked practicing, and it was easy and fun, and I was good at it, and it was great. And then once I started checking out music, then it just became like the most important thing ever, the most fun thing ever, you know? And it's still that way. It's so awesome. It's still that way.
You've played with a multitude of artists. Who is someone, if you see them on the same bill as you or sitting in a session with you, you already get a good feeling like this is going to be a creative time. I'm going to have a great time working with somebody. And I know this person, we just kind of like click as we go performance wise.
Who is somebody that I think of like that, you're
Yeah.
saying? Yeah, you know, I will say this, the most important thing to me when I'm making music is that I'm enjoying myself and making other people happy. And when there's people that you know that you're comfortable with, that's an easier opportunity for that to happen. Plain and simple. Really, after all these years of playing, and you know, I've had some opportunities to play with some really strong players, some really great players, and people that really inspired me. But the people that are the best people to play, whenever any of their names are, it's really all my friends. The people I've been making music with, generally speaking, it's from like this year back to like 25 years. And a lot of times, like, the longer that stretch is, the more everything evolves as everybody ages and gets better and all of that. So, like, when I have gigs with my own band, I tried for a long time to, like, get superstar names or get people that could bring extra clout. And it never musically was what I wanted. And now I'm playing with all my favorite people and my favorite friends, and it's exactly what I want it to sound, or way better than I could have imagined. So my favorite thing to see for a name is one of my best friends on the bill with me, either with my band, me with their band, we're playing together in the same group under a different band leader. That's my favorite, because that sense of security, yet you know each other musically well enough that you can always, you know, there's going to be some quality exchange and some challenge, you know what I mean? It's not just going to be smooth sailing, because that person really knows how you play and can challenge you in different ways. So yeah.
When we talk in music, we always say music is a conversation. So because of those connections you have previously working with those people and your friendships that you have, when you play musically, you're having that talk and you're having that catch-up session where you're like, oh, what are you doing? And, you know, someone's coming in with something else like, oh, this is what I did. And it's all through music, but it's still having that conversation where, you know, even if you haven't seen each other for a while, when you sit down, oh, we're going to talk about this and this, we're going to catch up on this. They're going to come in, tell me some new things. I'm going to tell them some new things, and everything's just going to be rolling along with that friendship through the music.
Or sometimes you're driving 2 hours in the rain, stuck on the Brooklyn Bridge, coming back from somewhere in Staten Island for this ridiculous gig, and you're coming back, and you got no time, and you're running late, and you're trying to get there and get your parking, and you get in and you sit down, and you see your buddy back there in the band, or you look forward and see them. You look at each other. The downbeat hits, you didn't even have a chance to talk, and suddenly, bam, it's awesome. That's so great. It's so great that it can just start out, and generally speaking, you can just hit. Because like you said, this is a conversation, in my opinion. People may treat music in many different ways. People treat music as a meditative state. People treat music as a means to an end financially. People use it as a spiritual thing to feel good for themselves. People use it for all different things. People use it as a vocation, as an educator. But really, when it comes down to it, music is a really important thing to me, and I want to make sure that I'm doing its justice. And if I'm thinking about it in the right way, I'm gonna be there. And usually, my friends, the guys that I've traveled the world with, that I've known for a long time, that I can trust, that I've dealt with adult situations as well as bandstand music making situations, real life, that I know that they have my back. We can travel together, we can work together, we can sort out differences together, we can make music, and we inspire each other on the bandstand. It's not like we're tired of it because we know it all. That just makes it so much easier. All of that human experience really helps the music making experience. It really shapes it. Yeah.
For you, days you aren't gigging,
hmm
what do you feel is there a particular time of day where you feel you're most creative?
No, not really. I will say that sometimes it's important to make time to be creative, and I should subscribe to that more because I probably will have more creative output. But I will say that sometimes the idea or the concept or the inspiration or whatever comes to you, and it can't just be from 7 to 9. Maybe it's going to come to you at 1:30 in the afternoon. Especially these days, right? We're
Hmm.
living in this pandemic. We're all indoors. So, my house is a quarter acre. I got a nice house and a nice little piece of property around me, and so we have a little bit of outdoor space. But this is where we are, and this is our being right now. And time doesn't have a lot of meaning as much as it used to. Like, we're getting up, and my kids are handling their studies, and I'm doing what I have to do for my teaching stuff and for my creative work and all of that. But now I could just sit down and start practicing after we're done here and start working on something. Or, oh man, maybe there's a melody that comes to my head, I want to sit down. Or maybe it's just like, not, instead of even trying to be creative, it's like, why don't I sit down and open up that book about chord changes on piano and actually just get a little mechanics down on there? Because that in and of itself also inspires creativity to me. I try to like springboard sometimes because, I mean, like, I don't care who you are or what you do. Everybody's got a little bit of, or a lot of, like, insecurity and self-esteem issues from when we're, like, born until we're to our last day, and we all work with them. And like, for me, it's like I'm always battling, if I work hard enough. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I don't really play piano, and I don't do this, and sometimes I don't practice every day. Some cats that I know, they're like, every day, yeah, I got to get my 2 hours in here, and then I'm going to do the workout, and it's awesome. And for them, it makes them sound good. Sometimes it doesn't make them sound good, by the way. That doesn't mean anything. But, like, there's always a lot of, like, of that, even for me, even for what I've done, and things that I still do. You get unsure of yourself. And one thing I'm always unsure of myself is my creative output as a composer, as beyond the drums. But I'm working on it. I think I'm doing okay. I think I've finally, like, moved forward on that. But yeah.
See, I think that's one of those things that gets me from college days of being studying music. You always had, oh, I gotta practice 2 hours. I gotta have this. So there was always, like, you mentally had set in your head, like, I have to hit these time frames and these time amounts for me to be, like, to say to myself I'm being productive.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where I've realized, as especially during this whole time frame with everything going on, that if I can just get 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there and 5 minutes there, like, all of a sudden I realize Oh, I've actually have a body of output that I'm doing. I just don't realize it because I'm doing it in small bits. You know,
Right.
it's one of those things where keeping like that piece of paper by you, like, oh, I got an idea. I'll just write it down. I'll get to you later. But it's those.
and I think if you care to, as time goes on, you become a way more efficient learner if you really want to. And I'm always desiring efficiency on all levels because it makes things easier for all the things I'm doing all the time, you know? And so anything that can help that, I'm into. You know, I have a thing in my phone, my little notes for and a voice recorder, and I try to sing little melodies in there. A friend of mine had recommended I do that. It was like, that's so simple. Why didn't I think of it? It's like everyone, you know, there's not a lot on there, but sometimes I'll just be sitting and like something will get really stuck, and it's like, man, all I need is that I can just expand from there very easily, you know. So you know, you always want to be ready, right? You know, but I think we're efficient learners if you really want to be. Like I agree with that. You know, I love to sit and I'll say since the pandemic thing has started, there's definitely been more opportunities for me to finally sit down and really play a bunch. You know, long form practicing things than I've done in a long time. But if I need something to work on and I know I can work on it, I'll work right on it, and it doesn't have to take a long time, you know? We you can get that, and you know when you've maxed out, even if you haven't mastered something you're working on, you know when you've maxed out on working on that idea or that exercise or that etude, like this is as good as it's getting today. And it gets put to bed now, and you go to anything else if you want to keep playing, but enough there, you know? Yeah, so I'll go and like even when practicing, you know, I'll try to have a practice pad around. I'm trying to use it a lot more now that I'm home all the time and have it there. And so I'll go and I'll play something. And I've been working on some idea that a friend, a fellow drummer, sent me. It was like, here's a cool sticking thing in five. Like mess around with it if you want, or play it once and throw it out. I don't care. And I got kind of like nerdy about it. I was like, yo, this is fun. So like I'll just go and sit there for like 5, 10 minutes and I'll work on it and work on it and put it to the side. Yeah, it doesn't have to be 6, 7 hours. Man, you know, you're a father, man. You can't commit to that time unless you are really an incredibly focused adult, or you have some super unbelievable cushy situation where nothing is expected of you in your life at all except for you to just be this aura, you know, of create, and that's cool. And I know people that are that, you know, I know people that are parents and spouses, and they kind of are that. And that's the situation that works for all of them, and they're all happy because that's what the thing is. But you know, that's few and far between, you know. I want my kids to love me and know me and have good memories of time with me too. And I can't spend all of my time working on something I worked on when I was 18 just because it's a little faster now. Who cares? This shit doesn't matter on the bandstand, you know? What matters on the bandstand is or do 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 and just make it cook. Yeah.
We're gonna shift gears a little bit for you.
Sure.
For you, it always seems to be, as you talk creativity always seems to have a connotation of success for people.
Hmm.
But for you, where does failure and rejection work into your creative process?
Um, I think I think it piggybacks for me personally, not to say I'm some representative of anybody else, but for me personally, I think it kind of goes back to even the same thing that I was saying about like the sort of like lower creative output as a composer because I didn't grow up with piano experience, and I wasn't pushed because my dad was supportive, but he never thought I was going to be a musician. Like, come on, man. Like my dad worked for the New York City Transit Authority, man. You know, man, he was like a lunch pail guy. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna go do something, and then you're gonna get a job, and then that's it. You know what I mean? And my mom was like, yeah, just do the right thing and support him and stuff. So, but um, I think again, not for me, not having that drive or maybe just that inspiration as a composer early on uh, had made it very difficult for me to basically get started. So like when I went to college and everything, I was learning and learning and absorbing and trying to be a classical percussionist. I thought I was going to play for the New York Phil or the Metropolitan Opera, and then I wasn't getting any better on the classical percussion. So then I kind of shifted more to the drum set and was studying with people and stuff. But all through that time, I never picked up a pencil and wrote a piece of music of any kind. And then I got out of college and I had taken some piano courses, but man, I just like I didn't try very hard on it, and so I didn't get a lot out of it. So then here I am trying to now make a living as a drummer, and the failure is the constant reminder that I'm a really good band leader, which I've always known from my education thing. Like I can gather up people and we can stay focused and we can have a good time and get that thing going and still accomplish stuff. I know I'm adept at that. You know what I mean? But without a book of music to do, then you're just leading a cover band. And there's nothing wrong with a cover band at all, but that's not being a leader. So I really wrestled with it and was lazy about it at the same time until I turned 40. Was it 40? Something like, I don't know, whatever. Something in my late 30s. Like I turned that age and I was like, forget it. I'm going to get some piano lessons. And I reached out to some people and I'm like, listen, you know me, like I'm a professional musician and all that. I just can't play the piano very well and I need some inspiration and for composition. And I got paired up with this great composer, great piano teacher, and he got me going. And man, that's the first time that now recently in the last like couple of years that I felt as confident that I've beaten back this constant failure in the creative process to the point that I'm outweighing it by actual having gains and not thinking of it. You know what I mean? So it was always this sort of uphill battle of this little struggle to get pieces out and try to make that thing happen and not just have quantity, but have quality, I mean, yeah, anybody can write a piece of music, but if you want to write one that you feel proud of, that you feel that comfortable to hand to somebody that you really respect, then you want it to be good. You want it to feel like something that you feel good about. So, it's easier now, I'll say that, but I still have friends of my one of my best friends is entered this thing since it started like 2-3 weeks ago. It's like composition a day. This guy is right, and there's no parameters to it. So they're like they have like an online meeting once a day, I guess, and everybody shares whatever they wrote, and it's through the use of like music software and that sort of thing. But essentially, yeah, write some music. And he's written like a tune for like the past 18 days. Every day he's written something. Man, it took me it took me like 4 or 5 years of really seriously hardworking to get a bunch of tunes I felt good about for my album that I'm just finishing now. It's crazy.
Now, on that, let's transition over that. So you had some great success with Molly Tigray,
Yeah.
and now you're moving into your next group, the Joe Abba Funk Unit.
Uh-huh.
How has the process been of creation for this album? Which you're saying it's your first official album. What has
And
the process been like for that?
um it's been it was a bit nerve-wracking, of course, because there's that thing of like, I'm preparing all of these musicians to play my music to the best of their ability, to the most perfect version of how I would want it to be played through various gigs in order to build up to this moment where we go into a really nice, high-end, top-rated studio in Brooklyn, they all come in that day, and the whole day is about making my art. And it was incredibly nerve-wracking, incredibly nerve-wracking. I was, for a long time leading up to it, let alone that day. Um, but uh, it was the one of the best experiences of my entire life because it was unbelievable to hear my music played so well all together by this band that had gotten to that point. They had really gotten it, and everything was really tight, and everybody was playing the shit out of their instruments, and there was this great spirit in the room, and we made some magic happen. And to all the stuff that I've learned, I mean, I've played on so many albums as a drummer and as a band member of so many different things. You said Molly Tigre and my buddy Sean Nell's Kung Fu Masters and a Bjorkestra and all these things. But the idea that the whole thing is, well, whatever you want to do, it's your music, it's your things and your sounds, it's whatever it is. And to plan that whole thing out and then learn about how that music gets taken, that music gets chopped up and edited, and all the edges get sharpened on it. And then after that very long process, you think about what else does it need. So then you talk about doing like overdub. So then I did another whole day, which was so crazy because it was a whole day at the same studio, and I didn't play a thing almost the entire day because it was just people coming in like Emily Frederick, amazing violin player, came in and did a whole bunch of violin tracks. And then this MC came in and rapped on one. And then a whole bunch of us sang Tito Puente's song, this chorus section in it. And my percussion teacher, Memo Acevedo, came in and played all this percussion on a couple of tunes. So it was a whole day I had never experienced, where here's this whole day about making music, and all my creative is like exploding, but I'm not actually doing anything drum oriented. That was such an exhilarating feeling because everything that everybody did was so good. And again, I was able to take that, I think, talent as a director, as a band director, as a leader, and try to get exactly what I wanted out of it. And then all these other steps came afterwards: mixing and mastering and decisions and cutting and song titles and all of this stuff and licensing stuff. That it's been so fun, and I gained so much knowledge. And like, if I sell no copies, I don't even care because it sounds so good and I'm so happy with it. But I think it'll do okay.
With that, you have everything done, everything's been mixed and mastered. When do you see your product of creativity coming out to the public now?
I'm gonna say I'm planning on sometime in the after times. After the time goes by where we can leave our homes, and then people start wanting to leave their homes, which is also going to be a long road. Then, I'm hoping I could get something for the fall or even the winter. But I've also tried to make peace with the fact that, like, I mean, like, I was getting the master versions of the music emailed to me, like, as the fires were closing in on the world, and it was like unbelievable. Like, I had gigs booked and all this, and promos. It's fine. All I had left to do was a photo shoot and a couple of like legal things, licensing stuff to to finish, and then press my own CDs, and everything else was good to go. But it wasn't meant to be. And you know it's taken like 40 something years for me to make this album, right? I think we can all wait. If it's 6 months, if it's 2 months, if it's a year, whatever it takes, man. Right now, creativity may be key, but we humans have to get ourselves sorted out and make sure we're healthy, and then we can then start doing more of what we're all missing and what we're sad about, or cool about if you're an introvert and you love staying home. How about you, John? Are you a stay-at-home guy generally, so it's not so much of an effect, or are you constantly on the go kind of person where this is a real like change of experience for you, what we're dealing with now?
For me, actually, I find it's refreshing. Like like you said previously, I've taken some time where I've started sitting down, and I recently got a new keyboard and some other new equipment. So I've been going through. I bought like I bought a tutorial course just to walk me through the software, and I actually have time to do that. And I've been going through and like going doing lessons. Every day I'll do a couple minutes of the lesson just to get further on it. So
Right?
it's been good because it forced me to have kind of a time to reflect and go, you know what, this is the time. I'm going to do it now. It's like, it's those pivot points. It's like when you're in your 20s and you get dumped by your first serious girlfriend, you're like, oh, I got to go join a gym. I got to start doing this. I got to start doing all these different things. And you make this pivot, pivot in a dramatic fashion where all of a sudden those things you always want to try now become habit to you. So for me, it's been, I've been trying to knock down projects around the house, and it's one of those things where I haven't played a lot, but I have been creative. Like I've been able to work
That's all that
on these
matters.
little projects and little different projects, and they get my brain working in a different way of thinking, where I'm building something or I'm helping my sons with something. And for me, like that, I always take something from each of those little things that I do as part of my creative process. So then when I
Yeah.
do have time, I sit down and I'm like, okay, let's learn something new. And then I can mess around with that for a little bit. And like, I have a couple tunes that I've been writing where it's just, some are skeletal, some are starting to flesh out, but it's never like, oh, this is never going to get done. It's just like, okay, I did 5 measures today. Good. I'm cool. I'll come back to it at a later time. So I've been using this as being kind of a work time for me. Normally, I love teaching. I love being with my students.
Yeah.
They are inspiring. They're interesting. It's no such thing as a boring time with my students because they're always saying something wild or interesting, and like they push me to be my best self when I'm trying to do stuff. Like I have some seniors this year who have, hey, can we do this? And I kind of take the attitude of, if they're suggesting it, I'm going to say, yeah, let's see what we can do.
Yeah.
We may not be the best thing out there, but we're going to try it. We're going to give it a shot. And, I always tell my students, fail forward. Like, don't be scared of stuff. If you're going to make a mistake, make it loud. If you're going to try something out, it's going to be awful, but it's going to get better. The more you bang at it, you're going to chip away,
Yeah.
go into the woodshed. You're going to sit there and chip away that piece of wood until all of a sudden you have this beautiful carving. So it's like, suck and fail forward and get better and better as you go along. And
Yeah.
that's
John
one thing.
Coltrane wasn't really good the first time he picked up a saxophone. Yo-Yo Ma was really good really quick, but not the first day he played cello, everyone. Everybody has a learning curve. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've been teaching my son. He wanted to play a little bit. He's the second grade now. And so he's been wanting to play some trumpet. So I've been giving him like little trumpet lessons. We've been playing together. And he's naturally good, but he's not understanding 100% the idea of like, well, why do we got to do it over and over again? It's like, because you can't naturally do it right off the bat yet, but you're close, and then you'll go on and do something else. So he's learning, but I mean, that's the way it is with life. Whether I'm playing drums, it's repetition. Whether I'm teaching, it's repetition. Whether I'm composing or trying to do something for self betterment, it's repetition. If I'm hanging with my wife, we do things that are fun, and when we do them some more, you go to the restaurant that you like, that's your favorite, or you go to the place that's always a good time. You know what I mean? And that's what it's about. you know it can be macro or it can be micro on
Mhm.
all levels. Creativity can be micro. It can be just a little spark of something that comes to you for a moment and passes. Or it's something that like you worked on like 10 years ago without even thinking about anything, and somehow you're seeing it or hearing it differently, or for some reason that thing clicked. You know, uh, that's a big thing I talk about with practicing, is that like, you know, it's the sooner you can get out of the mentality that like this is kind of a drag to practice because I don't see what the gain is. When you get to that point in time when you say everything can be a gain, everything I can get, like I don't like country music, generally speaking. Modern country is not my favorite thing. But there's something to be said about teaching kids about playing on the backbeat and laying back on the beat. And a lot of the slower modern pop country tunes have a really nice they're a real nice indication of what that how that beat is played. So like, you take it from whatever, but it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like it could come at any time and in any way. It doesn't have to even come at that moment. It could come way down the road. You're not even thinking about it. It's like, oh, yeah, I like that now.
Listen,
Yeah.
if you want to check out some funky country, dig up Kenny Rogers' first band, the first edition, and
Ooh.
they had some funky, like if you listen to it, you can find some funky drum breaks listening to the first edition. Like I found
Yeah,
it
I mean, I dig me with a classic. I mean, I grew up with Kenny Rogers on the radio too, man. Crossover Kenny Rogers, if you think about it, like he was a country singer, but was known around the world. Dolly Parton too, you know what I mean? There weren't a lot of people like that that really made it that big, and it's because they're awesome. Willie Nelson, you know what I mean? How many other Willie Nelsons are there? None, just him, you know? Cream always rises to the top, no matter what.
very true.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, I think we're going to end it here. So thank you so much for sitting down with me, having this conversation and
Oh man,
everything.
this
It's
has
been
been total.
fantastic.
This has been a total blast, and man, I love talking. I was voted most talkative senior year of high school. I will remind you. Yes. But yeah, I really love talking life, and I love talking with you. And man, poetic that this let it be known that this day that we speak was literally the day we were supposed to be together in the same place. But here we are. We worked it out anyway to talk to each other on the digital spirit, and I'm so glad we did. It was great.
All right. Well, that's it for me and my guest, Mr. Joe Abbatantuono. I'm John Camilleri, and I still don't know what I'm doing, but I hope you all continue to adapt, improvise, and overcome your challenges to find your creativity. See you again next week.